Welcome back to Sasquatch Theory. In today's episode, we sit down with Chelsea Joe from Kansas, who has experienced a lifetime of strange and chilling encounters that began on a farm in Arkansas. From spooked horses and foul odors near the Mississippi River to terrifying moments at home when something massive stalked her chicken coop. Chelsea's story reveals years of unexplained activity, with her father as a witness to a towering gorilla-like figure and her sister finally admitting to her own Bigfoot encounter. Chelsea's journey is one that connects family, mystery, and the possibility of something beyond our dimension. Get ready for a fascinating and eerie story you won't forget. If you guys enjoy Sasquatch Theory, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to comment down below. If you have a Bigfoot encounter you would like to share with me here on the channel, please get in touch with me sometime at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. With all that being said, let's dive straight into Chelsea's encounters from the state of Arkansas. Chelsea Joe, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Miguel. How are you?
I am doing excellent, and it's an absolute pleasure to finally speak with you. Chelsea, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your experiences from the very beginning.
Certainly. Well, I was born in Wichita, Kansas, and it's more like a city thing, but we didn't have any country or anything like that. But when I was 8 years old, it was 1980. It was so hot. We drove to Arkansas, and that's when we moved here to be. We lived with my grandma and grandpa, and it was the hottest summer. I'll never forget it. Our car was overheating. It took us like 8 to 10 hours to get here. And we lived with my grandma and grandpa. I was 8 and my sister was like 10. And it was at the end of July. It didn't take us long to where we wanted to get out of the house. It was so hot, but I said, come on, to my sister. I can't say her name, but let's go for an adventure in the woods. So behind my grandpa's house, there was a pasture with 2 horses, and we usually fed them, you know, watermelon rinds, cantaloupe rinds, and they were really friendly horses, not to be anything afraid or scared. But this particular day, it was kind of weird when we went through the barbed wire fence because my uncle had taken us back there on his dirt bike. There was trails and all like that that led to the park, and so we went on through the pasture, but the horses did not come up to us or nothing. I thought maybe we should be afraid of these horses, but they were kind of scattered to the right-hand side, huddled up together for some reason. I thought that was strange. But right when I got to the tree line, I started smelling this like garbage, dead body, musty odor. And I was looking, and there was garbage, like empty wrappers of Little Debbie's, and like somebody had carried trash off in there. And I instantly had that instinct of that sixth sense that I'm walking in, there's somebody homeless that's living back in here. I felt like I was intruding in somebody's living room or somebody near that. And the smell was extremely strong. The only thing I can describe it as real musty and like a body odor, and it was extremely hot. So if it was a homeless person or whatever it was, I mean, it was suffering that summer because we were breaking a sweat just getting through the woods. Well, I continued on, me and my sister, on the path, and there was a special place down the woods that my uncle would take us, and we just kind of had, it's a deafening like to where something is watching you. And I felt kind of creeped out. I'm like, Chandra, do you feel something? She goes, yeah, I think we need to get out of here. I said, I think we need to too. It was just a sense of danger. So we were going out, and I didn't smell it or nothing, but we made it outside of the woods, and there was like a log that had on the end of the tree line where I sat down. My back was facing the woods, and my sister, she was facing me, which was looking into the woods. And the smell came back extremely, like it was like where you could pass out. And the wind blew, and I'm like, whew, because it was obviously something dead. And it was on the Mississippi River. West Helena is on the Mississippi River. And my stepdad always went fishing, so I've smelt dead things before, and it was definitely something very strong and putrid. Well, my sister was talking, and all of a sudden she looks up, and this is up, and she looks back again, she freezes, and she's in shock. And she does like a 180, turns around, and she just takes off running across the field. She doesn't tell me anything, and I'm yelling at her, her name, Chandra, Chandra, what are you doing? So I guess I better run too. And her shoes were flying off. That's how fast that she was running. And I ran, and I could feel, I was so terrified. Whatever she saw, she was scared to death running. And I knew it was something that was behind me that had been living in the woods. But this is my first encounter with what I figured out later on was a Sasquatch. And she didn't talk about it for years. I met up with her, I'm like, Chandra, Chandra, what did you see? She didn't want to talk about it. She was in shock. But less than a week later, my grandpa was on the phone, and he got off, and he said, yeah, they had to move the horses out of the field out of here. And I said, why, Grandpa? He goes, something has spooked them. And I looked at him, and I'm like, no, I know we wasn't supposed to do this, and I know you told us not to go in the woods ever, but we went into the woods, Grandpa, and you were right. He goes, why? I said, it was something scared Chandler so bad that she doesn't even want to talk about it. And I think that's the same thing that scared the horses too. And he just kind of looked at me like a blank expression. He was a senior master sergeant in the Air Force, and he told me that those are considered very dangerous creatures, just like, copperheads or anything like that. In the military, they've got it listed as Sasquatch is a dangerous creature. Now, and I didn't ever go back in the woods, but he was right. And I think that these things are probably endangered species or something. That's why they got, the national forest saved for them. And I think that it's a terrible life, them digging in trash and having to steal people's chickens. But when you look back, I always get my answers from the Bible. I always talk to God and, can you show me what the answers are? But I was reading, I remember a story about Esau and Jacob and about him selling his birthright. And it's in Genesis 25:19 verses 19 through 26. Anyway, he was a huntersman. And they said that he was born first, and he was covered in fur. He had pink skin and all like that. And Jacob was more like what his mother had favor with his mother, Rebecca. And he stayed in with the tents. But Esau, he was an avid hunter, and he would bring meat in to his father. He had more favor with Isaac than Jacob. But he didn't think any much of his birthright. That anything in the Bible, it says that there's two nations in her belly, one that would serve the other, one would be stronger than the other. I don't know if have you ever heard that, Miguel?
Yeah, I was
Are
listening to
you
that.
aware of that?
Yeah, I was watching a video that was explaining that the other day.
What do you think about that?
It definitely made me think of Bigfoot and
Yeah.
the fact that he was hairy. I mean, that's a clue. I mean, it doesn't say Bigfoot, but a lot of people have wondered if that's what they're describing.
I know, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? So my next encounter was years later. I had bought a house, and I was so, happy to have got my own home, and my dad was working on it. It's up here in Mountain Home on Old Tracy Road. And of course there was water it was a creek running, and then it was a channel for Norfolk Lake. And up here in Mountain Home, there's several waterways, the White River, you got Norfolk Lake, Bull Shoals Lake. So we're pretty much surrounded by water. Anyway, this was on Old Tracy Road, and my house sat off back in the woods right next to the tree line. And I wanted chickens, and I've got 50 every year and raised them in the house, and then I would turn them loose in my chicken coop. And this thing was 10 by 12 and about 30 feet long. And I had all kinds of, I'd put them in the fair. They'd win ribbons every year. I don't know if you know about the fairs, but Baxter County Fair is a big deal in town. And the kids, I've got 3 children. At that time, they were little, but they would play at the side of the yard. And I really didn't want to scare them too much when my dad saw the one behind the chicken coop. We just said it was an owl. Because I had to continue to live in that house because I had bought it and it was mine. But I was a single mother with, 3 children, and I was so busy working, I ended up getting a coon dog. It was a blue tick coon dog that would look after these chickens. Because I really like the eggs. You can do a lot of things with chicken eggs, potato salad, all that stuff, sell them, whatever, homesteading actually. But I had no idea what I was feeding. I mean, we had coons. I had a 410 shotgun, I finally got because I was sick of whatever it was coming up in the yard, getting my chickens. Foxes, raccoons. I mean, they're very avid about getting chickens. But I had no idea that I had a Sasquatch in the backyard either, because it would dig through the garbage. And some mornings I know that I had shut my chicken coop door, and it would be wide open. Whatever this thing was knew how to open up a chicken door. And my chickens got to where they didn't even want to roost in the chicken coop anymore. They would roost in the trees. It got to that point. And I know for about 5 years straight, and it got really bad for 3 years straight, of something coming up in the backyard. Because my blue tick hound dog, he would be on top of the barn, and he would get in these barking sessions to where he was going nuts out there. And I had old wash machines that were behind the barn that I would store, and that's how he was able to get up there and just bark for 2-3 hours straight. Well, when I would get up, I would never see anything out there, but I knew something was driving him nuts. And now looking back, I'm thinking, well, you idiot, me being so tired, working a full-time job and taking care of 3 kids and always running around, he was going nuts because whatever it was coming up at night. At least 3 times a month he would do this. And they usually hide in the shadows, but it was coming up and around the house, And I mean, what can you do? I had a 410 shotgun, but the night of the sighting was me and my dad sitting out there, and he was facing the woods, and my back was facing the woods again. Like I said on my shirt, it says Sasquatch saw me, but nobody believes him. My dad got up real quiet. We were just sitting there talking, listening to music, and he was working on the house, adding a room addition onto it. And he gets up, doesn't tell me what he's doing. He goes to the very end of my chicken coop. And right when he gets to the very end of it, the whole tree just shakes. And I see him like looking up, the same expression that my sister had, with nothing but shock. And he's looking up. My dad was 6'5", Miguel. He was half Cherokee Indian, and he's looking up in shock. He was never afraid of nothing. That's why, he walked up there and he was trying to figure out whatever this thing is. What do you want? And I said, what are you doing? He said there was something that was sitting on the other side of the chicken coop, just sitting there, listening or staring. I said, how'd you know it was back there? Because all I saw was a dark figure, black figure. I didn't see its eyes like Dad saw. And he said it was the reflection from inside the house. That's how I could see its eyes. And I said, what did it look like? He said, it looked like a gorilla sitting there. Big, huge, massive thing. And he said, when I got to the end of the chicken coop, it stood up. Well, I know physically that tree shook, and my dad was not able to shake that tree. And he said, Chelsea, if you use your 410 shotgun on this thing, it's going to do nothing but piss this thing off. Just come to my house and we'll figure out something for you and the kids. And I really loved that house. It was my first house. I didn't want to leave it. I raised my kids there. I still have dreams about that house, and so do the kids. We had a lot of good times in that house. And see, this thing had been coming up for years, and it didn't hurt us. It could have had us at any minute, at any time. Me being a single woman with 3 children, never bothered the kids, you know, very patient that night. I mean, I knew it was there because I could smell something really bad about dusk, about 9:30 that night with my dad. I'm like, wow, that chicken coop is really stinking. And it was in the end of July, 1st of August, like always. It's always been in the dead heat of the summertime, usually around August, because about dusk, the daylight saving time is around 9 o'clock. It starts getting dark. Well, it must have been sitting there for about 2 hours because that's when my dad saw it around, was about 11 o'clock. And then listened to music, and he was drinking beer, but he wasn't too drunk because I know I saw that tree totally shake. And the next day, I came back over. I said, let's go back in the woods and see if we can find any evidence of, you know. And so I got behind the chicken coop. I didn't find any droppings or hair, but I measured how much that tree branch was of where it had stood up and hit its head on the tree branch. It was about 8 foot to 9 foot. And dad said, yeah, that's about 8.5, 9 feet tall. And I can't believe how close it was and how long it sat there listening to us, because I'm wondering, what is this thing thinking? Does it want to ask questions? Or, it just, and when you get in the mind of, it was kind of creepy, knowing that I was sitting there being watched, and what it thought, very peaceful, waiting for us to go in so it could steal more of my chickens. But anyway, Dad got very intrigued with it. After that, he did some investigation on Sasquatch. He said, the Native Americans, they call it the Stinky Man. And he was very intrigued with what me and Chandra had experienced back in the day. And I was finally able to ask my sister later on, I'm like, Chandra, you remember that time that you saw that? And what did it look like? And she said, well, it was not human looking at all, Chels. And she saw another one by the side of the road one night going down, when the side of the road, I think it was Springdale Road in West Helena. And she said she saw it again, standing by the side of the road. And me, I wear glasses, so I'm blind as a bat. That's probably why I haven't never seen it, but I have experienced things in that house that were totally unexplainable, like my dog on top of the barn, barking its head off. Dogs don't normally do that unless it's something on the ground that it's afraid of. He got way up high there, barking his head off, and he's actually treated a skunk. So I did find out what some of the stuff was getting in my garbage, but the whole chicken thing and the door being open, and I know that I had shut it that night. I pretty much told my dad, I'm going to stay in the house, but I'm going to give up on the whole chicken thing, because I have fought this battle for real hard for 3 years, trying to have these chickens and something coming up. I mean, there's a lot of chickens that if you go down to the creek, there was chicken feathers everywhere. You could see my chickens. It was so sad. And these were expensive chickens at one ribbon. So, and then years later, I found out that people were talking, this is just a couple years ago, that down in Norfolk, that there was a Sasquatch spotted stealing and messing with some people's chickens down there. So they like chickens. And of course, I don't live there anymore. I moved away. Some things happened I'm not going to get into, but I still have dreams about that house, and so do the kids. And I talked to law enforcement too, because I've been around this area for years. And this is where my dad's from and where he was born, and that's why I came here. But I asked him, have you ever heard anything about Sasquatch or anything? And he goes, well, where were you talking about? I said, I lived on Old Tracy Road. And he said, well, not too far from there, around the Tracy Ferry Marina. I was out on a date, and we were parked one night, and this was back when I was in high school. he said, I told her that we got stuck in the mud. And he said, I don't know, but right by the window on her side of where the woods were, he said, we heard a creature that sounded like a baboon that let out this cry, and she was scared to death. He said, needless to say, we got unstuck real quick to get out of there. And of course, that's law enforcement. They've told me experiences about that. And my grandpa, too. So when it's facts and I'm an overthinker, and I'm thinking there's no way you can justify some of the things that we had, that happened. It had to be in a Sasquatch. Listening to your podcasts and stuff, I've seen tree structures too. I didn't know what created those. I'm like, you're walking in the woods and like, oh, that's interesting. I don't mean to be a blonde or anything, but because when you're not taught that these things exist, you're not thinking, well, it's going to be, Sasquatch, all the different crossings. I've seen those all my life here in Arkansas, the tree structures. And, but anyway, is there any questions that you want to ask me, or maybe
Yeah,
are you there?
yeah, I'm here. It's really interesting that the Sasquatch were approaching your property, and it sounds like you had a gifting situation unknowingly, and this thing would listen to you, it would watch you and wait for you to go inside to make its next move. And it sounds like the chickens were terrified and they knew what was going on. And yeah, so like before your dad walked up to the chicken coop, did you see a black shape? Did you notice anything unusual?
Yeah. Yeah. It was all black back there. It was, but I'm like, because I looked down, like, what are you doing, Dad? And he wasn't the one that made that tree shake. It was what stood up that made that tree. And all I saw was solid black. And he was in the direction he was looking at. It was in shock. Both of his face and my sister's face, you could tell, because I am into details that, because these people your whole life. When they're in shock and speechless and don't know what to say. And that's what both of them, it was unexplainable. Like, wow, I've just seen something that is not supposed to be even exist, but it does exist. It catches you off guard to where, oh wow, what are we going to do? Well, we've got to settle down and we got to think rational. You need a place to stay. It hasn't bothered you. It ran off from him. It did. It turned around and it took off. Like when my dad confronted this thing, it it took a 180 and ran from my dad. And he was face to face. He was on one side of the tree, and this creature that stood up 9 feet tall uh, was on the other side of the tree, and this thing took off like it was afraid of my dad.
Yeah, that's
So I know
incredible.
that, yeah. So I know that he wasn't meaning to harm us, or he could have had us easily, my kids, me. And it seemed like every day, Miguel, when I got home from work, how you see something, you hear something happen once or twice, but the third time and every time, when I would get home, we always used the back door. We didn't go around the front. It was just easier that way to go into the utility room. Every day, about the time I would get to that door or come out, I don't know if you could hear me walking through the house. It that I had a tin roof on where the dog would get up on the barn. It had a tin roof, and it was like clockwork. There'd be a rock that would hit that tin roof. And I'm like, I noticed the first time, then I came back, it would hit it again. And I'm like, this is very uncanny. And I always felt like somebody was watching me. So I would go in the house and I would look, through the woods or whatever. But you know how shadows and trees, that they can always play tricks on your mind. But I saw turkeys back there. I've seen deer. This one was a weird one. One night I heard whippoorwills, and it didn't really sound like a whippoorwill, and they were like one was over here and one was over there. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, and it just that whippoorwill, different. And then I've seen owls,
Hmm.
but one time I did hear, I think it was a buck that did like how they smell your scent and they go like that.
Yeah.
Ever heard a buck sniff because they
Hmm.
don't like your scent? And I thought for a moment, what is that? Is that, But all in the back of that uh, land, all the way to the creek, there was different tree structures, and it was real creepy back there. And then on past that was a cow pasture, so it was nothing but woods and pasture and all like that. It's on 5 South and Mountain Home, Old
Wow.
Tracy Road.
Yeah, that would have
Yeah,
been an
and
incredible place to investigate. Did they ever leave you any items? Because it sounds like they were kind because, like you said, it could have got you guys at any moment, and it didn't. It took off into the woods. Did you ever notice them leaving like feathers, rocks, like anything out of place?
hmm, I really didn't pay attention that much. Just that the chickens were gone, and it was like a slow thing. It was where it took a few months for them to totally diminish. Where well, my chickens, there's not much left of them this year. And
Hmm.
I noticed after I didn't have the chickens anymore, then I didn't have a problem anymore
Yeah,
with
they
the
try to make it
activity at
not so
night.
obvious.
Yeah, and I just felt, I mean, even if it was a Sasquatch, I didn't mind him coming up, but it was like I quit naming the chickens because it was too much of a problem with. And I did at one time have a lot of chickens, like 50, 60 chickens at a time, and that's a lot of chickens to be eaten off of. I don't think he ever gifted me anything. I don't remember ever seeing anything that was of gifting. That would have been interesting, though,
Hmm.
just to be able to talk or wonder what it's thinking. You know, is what I want to know. Can you imagine all what it watches us do? I mean, other people, when they see people partying out in the woods, or no wonder they run off from us. Like they probably think we're all crazy.
Yeah, could you
But
hear
it
it
would be
crashing through the
interesting.
woods?
Yeah, yeah, I did.
Wow.
Because I mean, a squirrel, a squirrel makes all kinds of noise through the woods,
Hmm.
and And I always felt like something was watching me, even when I would take a shower. And I'm like, Chelsea, you're crazy. There is nothing back there that's going to be looking at you through the window. Yeah, right. So I ended up putting a curtain back there. But I love that house, Miguel. It was like my first house I ever bought. And it was like a dream, come true that I was able to raise my kids there. And the kids never had any problem. They were always having fun and everything. It's just kind of like the off the wall things that, like the rock always hitting the shed whenever I'd come or go. It was right at that time when I would get out of the house and it would you could I mean, how often do you hear a rock thrown on a metal shed?
Hmm.
And a few times that happened, them hitting the rocks on that metal shed, but the dog acting like that, he's trying to tell me, there's this big thing out there. I did have a light, a light pole, but it didn't cover the whole backyard. And I have sat there, when something was stealing my chickens, I have sat there with the window, my bedroom window open, with that 410 shotgun ready and waiting, because chickens will let you know when they're being hunted. And that night, it was just a big old coon that I shot at, buckshot. And he made it almost to the creek because I checked him. He didn't make it, but with the Sasquatch, I would never shoot one of those ever. And that'd be just like my dad said, enough to piss it off. Or I don't, that's why I think people need to be aware of these things out there. I think they want to be left alone, but what a horrible way to live. What, scavenging, food and, um, I think mine was just an easy meal while they were coming up, and then there was a water supply with the creek in the backyard too. And I think of all your different experiences that I hear on Sasquatch Theory that, um, yeah, they are real. And I think they are of a physical creature because they eat. And we've heard of sideshows where the dog faced boy, people having these skin. differences. Maybe they feel like they're a reject from society. They don't look like us, but I do believe they are smart and know what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
I do. But is there any questions?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't blame the Sasquatch. I mean, it was taking farm eggs, and farm fresh eggs are the best. They're way better than the grocery store. So I can't blame them.
Yeah, I know. And both my kids, they remember me trying to do the homesteading thing. Both Demi and Devin, she's got her little farm, and she's got her eggs, that she does. And then my son, he's got chickens too. So the chicken eggs are still in the family. So you're right, they're much better than the grocery store. But
Yeah.
um,
It
it was
sounds like
just,
there was a clan of them back there, and they were working together to steal chickens or chicken eggs. And like you said, they would throw a rock on the roof, signaling that you were moving around the house, probably getting ready to come out. And I noticed this on one.
coming and going.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I noticed
coming
this
and
on one
going.
of my friend's properties. I had an audio recorder set up out there where he had been seeing the Sasquatch. And when they would drive down their driveway, like they were coming back from town, coming back to their house, I would hear a loud wood knock, pow, on the recorder. And then you hear them park and get out of their vehicle, and they didn't notice anything. They were in the vehicle. And these things were signaling to one another that someone's home. And I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed when I was like, this is like a walnut's not going to hit that tin roof every single time I walk out the door. And it was just an eerie presence. You have the sixth sense, but I was bound and determined to do my homestead in there, and I had my gun, and as long as it left me alone, but I gave up on the whole chicken thing, but it did. And then I heard tree knocks there too. Like it was like, I would hear tree knocks. And it's not just a woodpecker either. It was more of a hollow, boom, boom, out there. But I didn't know what they were. Even just like the whippoorwills one night. I heard them, and that was very unusual because it didn't sound like a normal whippoorwill.
Hmm. They were mimicking
They have
animals to communicate to each other while blending into their environment.
right, and I'm like you, Miguel. I would like to know, okay, the behaviors, but we've got to break the ice. We've got to somehow communicate with these things and maybe come to a happy medium to where we can maybe all get along. I don't know. What do you think?
Hmm.
Well, what is it? It's like they're always on the tree line. We always meet them on the tree line. I mean, huh?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you said it was a black color. Did your dad describe any features on this creature? He said it looked like a giant gorilla. What more did he say about it?
He said that it was just sitting there and it'd gotten real comfortable, um, and just sitting there for a long time. And that's why he got up and was going to go over there and whatever it was, going to ask it. What is it? And I don't know if I probably don't need to say this, but he said, "You're not on that time of the month, are you, Chell?" So I said, "No, why?" And he said, "Because it draws animals like that in." Good Lord, no,
Hmm.
no.
Yeah, I've often heard people say that. And I feel like this creature had a connection to you. It felt comfortable with you. And there's a lot of people out there with horses, chickens, and livestock, but for some reason, it chose you probably because of your kindness. And I don't know, animals can sense that off of people.
Yeah, but I wonder why it just sat there and treat for like that long. I knew it was sitting there because I could smell, the smell, and it was stronger than usual with my chicken coop. And the timing, I'm into timing too, and facts. That the time that I smelt that to the time that my dad realized it was right there behind the chicken coop, is that's why it was so strong, because it was like only 10 feet away from us, if not maybe 13, 14 feet away, because this was a 10 by 12 chicken coop in all the diameters, and I was on the other side and he was on the other side. That's pretty close. That
Hmm.
is very close.
Yeah.
For him to be sitting there just intrigued on listening to what me and my dad have what we were just sitting there talking, and listening to music. I think the music probably brought it in because my dad liked listening to old time rock and roll and sitting there have some old style. And it was a Friday night, and that's what we usually did was just sit in the backyard, And um, it's eerie to know that something like that is just sitting back and watching you. And what are you thinking? Like, yeah, maybe it did think I was kind, but I didn't shoot at it that night. I just accepted the fact that this is my home. It hasn't hurt me or my kids or anything. It doesn't mean any harm. It just is coming up for food, or maybe it felt like it was protecting us. I don't know, but I definitely know that. I kept it a secret from the kids because I didn't want them to get freaked out, because we still had to live there and I own the home. You can't just sell your house just like that.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
I ended up putting it up for sale. I never did get what I wanted from it off of the what it was worth, but I wish I'd never sold it. I wish I would have stayed in it and continued on, because it's a very nice house but we moved on from there. And is there any questions?
No, I think you pretty well covered it. This thing was curious. You guys were playing music. You guys were talking. There was a chicken coop, and it had you patterned down, and it knew everything that you did. Like, this time is when Chelsea comes out and feeds the chickens. She does this and this, and they probably knew a lot more about you than what you could even imagine.
I know. That's what's so eerie about it, Miguel. That is what's so eerie about it. It knew more about me than I knew. And I knew something was back there. I just chose to, hey, I've got a locked door. I've got a deadbolt. But, the size of this thing, Dad said it was 8.5, 9 feet, the branch, when it hit its head. Um, and I feel like it was a male that was living back there. A male. I think the one that my sister saw was a female, because she said that it was, that movie called A Flash of Beauty?
Yeah, the
She
channel.
said that, yeah, The Flash of Beauty. She said it was beautiful. So I think hers was, the first one we saw was a female. And it didn't mean no harm. It was just watching us, very intrigued. And I mean, it could have had us. The way my sister acted so terrified, I felt the heat on my back just running. And I didn't want to, how you're so afraid. You don't want to look back because it's going to be there and you're probably going to trip.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept on running, and I zoomed through that barbed wire fence. And of course, I was only like 8. I was only in second grade. And she was in the fourth grade. But we learned our lesson not to go in the woods. And I never got that far in the woods on my own property on Old Tracy. It was about 3.5 acres I had, but it was all along the road. And then there's more acreage that butted up to Stanley Pitchford's cows. There was cow pastures and everything back there, and I made my way through there. But it's, you want, from that time when I was little, I think it affected me and it opened my eyes to a whole new world of being in the woods. You got to be careful. You got to be on guard, because these things, I've always met up with kind ones, that were more afraid of us than we were of them. I don't think I could handle being with one that was aggressive. I don't know about your encounters, but have you ever ran into an aggressive Sasquatch or?
Yeah, most of my encounters were pretty positive, but I have run into aggressive ones in conservation areas, national forest, and I mean, even where I had peaceful experiences and encounters, I still had some negative ones, as far as them like screaming or whooping so loud that it sounded like a tornado siren. One charged through the woods at me, like did a bluff charge, and it just stopped at the edge of the wood line. I mean, I feel like that's aggressive. And when they followed
Oh
me out of the
yeah.
woods when I'd be bow hunting, I mean, this was late at night. That was pretty intense. I feel like it was being territorial and a little aggressive. So, I mean, they definitely have scared me, but for the most part, I feel like it was like juveniles and females that were being kind and gentle. But sometimes you run into some
Hmm.
that just, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, and I think this one I had the more of the advantage because it was my home and it knew that it was my home, And I'd been feeding it for about 5 years with these chickens. I did. I was pretty much into. I was a chicken lady, big time. I even had a little club on online that I was a part of. With these chickens, I had all kinds of different breeds. I could tell you all about these chickens, but it kind of died for me after, the whole Sasquatch thing, not being able to keep any of them alive and them just disappearing on me like massive masses of them at a time. Would it be at the end of summertime? I didn't have any left, and I would start in the spring around April, and I'd order them from Cackle in Lebanon, Missouri, and they'd ship them to me, and they were all little chicks, and I had it down to them being raised for 6 weeks in the house. Yeah. And then I would let them loose in the chicken coop, and I always shut that door. And when I'm thinking, I know I shut that door last night. You get to where you're doubting yourself. It is wide open. And then I'd make sure I'd shut it again, and get better latches on there. And then I'd send the kids, is that chicken door shut? But then you'd wake up one morning and be wide open. And then there'd be a total massacre of nothing but chicken feathers and all your favorite chickens. Like, what in the world came through here? And I would always blame it on a fox. And I wish now, how this was in 2004. You know how you could get cameras out? I wish now so bad that I would have had a camera back in those days. I have a camera now. And I hope I get to homestead. I'm looking for property to homestead again and have my chickens again. But with that other one down in Norfolk saying that one was coming up and getting their chickens too, and plus the way that my dog was acting and stuff, it only explains. And what my dad saw, there's just too many confirmations. The way the tree shook and the way he looked, and you can't deny facts. And it is true, and I think people need to be more aware of these things before they go out in the woods so they can prepare themselves. At least have, what would you say, a 9mm or to scare them away? Not a 22, but what do
Yeah.
you carry?
A 9, but I mean, anything would be sufficient. Definitely need bigger than a 9 to take it down, but I just feel like as long as you got something to scare it off, that would be sufficient.
Yeah, I mean, with all the field work that you've done, I'm surprised you've had more encounters than you let on your channel. That's quite a few that you've had.
Yeah,
Charge at you and stuff.
I've had a lot of experiences. I've seen them several times, so I can definitely relate to your experiences, and it makes sense why these things are so ripped, so stocky. I mean, this thing was eating chickens, chicken eggs, probably stealing people's cattle from around the neighborhood, eating deer meat, and yeah, because you often hear people say this thing was just ripped, and
Yeah.
I mean they're eating good.
Yeah, well, my dog, he brought up a deer bone, a leg bone off of a deer once in the yard, and he was chewing on it. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And it was right around there, around where I live. They're always bringing up some bones, and these were big animals, like where it's a leg bone, chewing on it. Sure have. Well,
Okay, so what else have you experienced in your life, and what else unfolded?
well, about 2016, you talk about supernatural, paranormal things, and I think God allows us to see things sometimes to strengthen our faith or to maybe make us aware of our surroundings, that we are not able, that we don't have any idea what's going on. And in these areas, up in this area, in the Ozarks, we're mountain home, and it's northern Arkansas, and it's close to certain places that have cults and witchcraft and things like that we are unaware of as Christians. And I think God showed me these things so I could be aware of my surroundings and what the individuals at hand was participating in. The given rides or whatever like that, I don't mind because I'm a very kind person, but one night as I was dropping, I called my friend. We went up to this cattle gate, and then the second cattle gate, I saw a pair of big, huge red eyes. And then I saw a pair of, and this was down, by the lower end of the cattle gate. And I'm thinking, what in the world? And it's looking straight at me, and it's kind of like simmering, like smoldering. Have you ever seen something on fire?
Yeah.
Like a smoldering red eyes. And before I got to that gate, I saw that it was a huge figure, and it was kind of like a projector, like shape shifting, like looking thing. And had a dead chicken right there at the gate that it had laid right there at the gate. It was a dead chicken because I saw the feathers, you know. And I had said something earlier that day when we left. I wonder what's getting the chickens. Here we go with the chickens. So there was the other set of eyes was a coon, and the big red eyes apparently was trying to tell me this is what's getting the chickens. That's all I got out of it, but it was a creature that was not in this dimension, Miguel. And I shined my headlights as far as I could look, and who was with me got out of the car and was growling and was running after this thing because it was waiting for us to get there. And it ran. These things are not like things of the darkness are not very bold. I think we've got more power than they do, and they're scared of us. But it will. Anyway, I saw the back end of this thing, and it was dragging itself, and it didn't have no legs. And I'm like, holy, and I swear to God, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't on drugs or anything, but this thing was what? Oh my gosh. I've never seen. And it just kind of, and there was dust all around it. And I saw its head. It was moving really awkward, like with its elbows. And it had a hole in the back of its head, like, on the left side. And it disappeared, into another dimension. And my friend asked, where did it go? Shine your lights, Chelsea. And I'm like, I don't want to shine my lights. It's terrifying. I don't want to see that thing ever again. And these things that happen, they happen when you're not even expecting this and you don't even know why. So again, I went to the Lord. He told me, he took me to Genesis 3:3, where it talks about the devil and it explains it. It's that man would look at him as the most terrifying creature ever, and that you will crawl on your belly and eat dust for the rest of your days. And it would be lower than the cattle, even. This was a perfect example right here. That is low, and it was like looking up at me. And I still feel like God was trying to tell me that is the devil, and you probably shouldn't be going there anymore. In this area, and I don't know if you know where I'm talking about, right, Miguel?
Is it the same area that you had the Bigfoot encounter at?
No, no, that's Baxter County.
Okay.
I'm talking about Marion County up in this area. We're close to the KKK, and I don't want to get anybody mad, but in this area there's a lot of hate. And if you're from the outside or whatever, they tend to do all kinds of stuff, even if you're not of color. But anyway, it's an occult that's up in this area, and I think that's what they do. They do this stuff, these rituals, and it's really hard to close these portals unless you have a lot of churches and a lot of prayer. And I know that God, probably sent me to this area to pray for them and, to spread his word and spread some light in this area. But those things do exist, and I do not question God. But let me tell you something, when you see something like that, you have got to have a lot of faith. Because I was like, oh, Lord, please protect me. Uh, and I think that it was about time for God to reveal those things to me, because you know how you always ask God for clarity and for the truth. And when he does reveal these things, hey, God is a God of mystery. And, the Bible, it has all kinds of parables about mystery. And I think there are things out there that God has not revealed to us, but they are there. They are definitely there. I've seen orbs. Um, it was in 2018. I was living with a friend of mine, She was Mormon, not that that's bad, but I remember opening up her door at night and seeing an orb right by her bed, and then it just disappears. And I told her the next day, well, and then I saw it at the bottom of the steps because I was staying with her. And some people allow these things in their homes. Me, I speak Psalms 91 over my home, over my children, over my grandchildren every day, because I do not want any orbs or any type of darkness even around me or my children or grandchildren. But I speak that, Psalms 91 over my family, divine protection, because I don't care if they're good spirits or bad spirits. I don't allow anything like that around me. I mean, you can never be too careful, but I mentioned it to her and I said, do you know that you have a spirit that's by your bed every night? And when I open, this orb, it disappears, and I've seen it at the bottom of your steps. She goes, oh, that's my Josiah. And I'm like, what? Who's Josiah? And she said, oh, that's my dead son that I lost when, some of these people, the spirits have fooled them into thinking uh, that they are actually good and they're there for protecting them. I don't know, because it's not like that in the Bible. God says he protects us. And, I don't know if the angels came and talk and, what was that angel, Gabriel in the Bible, the messenger? I mean, I think it was an actual angel, not an orb, because these things don't talk. These are orbs, and I've heard other people talk about orbs being in their homes, and I've seen those. My dad said he saw, and it's recorded in UFO sightings. 51st Street is where he lived in Wichita, Kansas. Right well across the street was a school, and he saw a huge UFO hovering over the school, you know. And, you know, I don't care if people think that we're crazy, but these things do exist. Your mind, and know that there are things that are unexplainable that are going to happen, and you need to be prepared for them. Expect the unexpected, because that's what life is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So the creature that you saw by the cattle gate, what do you think it was?
I think it was the devil, because if you go into Genesis 3:3, it describes him. He was crawling around on the ground with no legs, and it was kind of like moving like a snake, too. And it had these little things in the back of it, too. And people might think I'm crazy with that, but it does exist. It's in the Bible. I mean, when the devil, he can manifest himself to anyone if God gives him permission. And I think that's why I'd been praying for answers, about certain situations and things that I didn't have answers for. And I mean, God will answer your prayers. And I'm like, that? Yes. And so you know not to go there anymore. He will reveal things to you. Have you ever had those experiences?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So you know what I'm talking
Hmm.
about certain people, places, and things, dark entities that you don't need to be around anymore.
Yeah.
So,
And if you weren't
and
messing
I
with
don't
the
know.
occult, it was people in that area. What do you think caused this? Why do you think you got to see it?
I think because since we're Christians, we carry the light and, the kingdom of God and the Holy Spirit, and um, I'm sure I would be a good prize for anybody to be converted over to something like that. But I know my faith is very strong, and I had been praying, what is wrong in this area? Why do I keep seeing shadows, or why do I keep hearing that? And God will just put it right in your face. Okay, Chelsea, this is it. Okay. Oh, it's the devil. Let me go this way. you know, and the way it describes it in the Bible is, there's no doubt in my mind that it wasn't him, because it was smoldering, real cunning, real wanting to be my friend. It acted like it wanted to be my friend, like, here, this is what's been killing the chickens. And then when my friend went after it, it took off running too, and they're able to just disappear, because you can't really hurt him physically, because he's already dead. I think that's what the hole was in the back of his head too. But there's not very much left of him. It was pretty pitiful. It was nothing but bones, and burnt to a crisp, where he was smoldering. And it says that he would be eating dust, and he definitely was eating the dust. Have you ever seen that Lionel with Charlie Brown, the dust cloud around him? There was nothing but that in the spirit. But it was terrifying. I would never want to be close to it because it had claws and everything.
Yeah. And if you could
Um,
compare the
I,
creature to something you've seen either like on a movie or on the internet, what would you compare it to?
I would say the rake. It was like a rake. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those, but
Hmm.
it was a rake, but it was much more terrifying than that. And it was more decapitated, like the no legs. It could barely move. It was totally defeated, and even ran from us. You know, so if you don't have any fear and you have faith, you can't. They can't hurt you. I can promise you that. It didn't hurt me none. But all it wants to do is sit there and watch you and be, make up lies and false accuse you of things. That's all what the devil does. You know that, Miguel. In this world, being a Christian, and those people, if they think they get power from him, there's nothing like God's Holy Spirit, that lives within us. And I don't know why it was attracted. Maybe trying to scare me away from there, put the fear of God in me so I wouldn't go back. And maybe that he was trying to claim his territory over there. But since then, because this was back in 2016, since then they've all been won over by Jesus. They're all Christians over there now. So I feel like I've made a difference. They're not all into that anymore. Things have gotten better over here, I believe. Sometimes God will put you in places where you think, why am I in this God-forsaken place? Just to serve a purpose. And that's what I feel like I try to do when being kind and serving a purpose. But, I'm not perfect, but I do pray a lot, and God reveals things to me. So,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's why God showed it to me, to know what was dealing with. I still don't know until I go up there and he tells me the whole story, probably. But I know it does exist. I know if you believe in God, you should believe in the devil. And I never thought that it would look like that, so defeated and pitiful. But, when he reveals it to you,
Yeah.
you can't accept but believe it.
No, yeah, I
And then
completely agree.
when I was little, it was really easy to know that I was in the presence of Jesus in the church. And, we were singing Jesus Loves Me, This I Know, and I was only like 5, and we were screaming it. We were screaming it, and it was echoing. And they gave me this little plastic Jesus. And I said, Is this Jesus? And she goes, Yeah, that's Jesus. And I thought in my mind, with all my heart, I'm like, This isn't Jesus. Yeah, we had been singing that song, Jesus Loves Me, This I Know, where the Bible, tells me no or so. And I had already seen Jesus of Nazareth back in those times, back in the 70s. That's what I had seen already, Jesus of Nazareth. So I knew that it was Jesus is not a plastic Jesus. And, just really burning in my heart to, I really wish I could see what Jesus really looks like, because when I was about 3 years old, I would go to a church and they gifted me one of those pictures of Jesus with a little nightlight on it. And my mom told me, she said, You'd never be afraid of the dark. Jesus is always with you. And I said, That's Jesus? And she said, Yes. But it was also a feeling of being loved. And I got it from Sunday school there, and it made me feel protected. And I've since then realized that you're protected because he's always with you. I think that's what he was showing me there. This over sense of love that was coming over me, like I was a pretty big deal. I mean, I didn't feel that with my parents. I don't want to say I wasn't loved as a child, but this was an extreme over, like, man, a lot of love. that was surrounding me in that after we were singing. And it was an experience that I had. It's spiritual as about 5 years old. And I was taking my chair into the other room because they were dismissing Sunday school class. And it was just me by myself putting my chair up. And it was like a little kitchen area where the lights were turned off. And I kind of whipped around, feeling all loved, after church. And there he was. He was standing right there. He was young, about, 33, and he had long hair. That's all I saw was the tips of the ends of his hair, because Miguel, the crown on him, because he is a king now. Jesus is king. The crown on him is so bright you can't see his face. It's so like illuminously white, and so was his clothes. It was a spiritual body that he was in. But I saw the details of his robe. It was Hebrew clothing, and he was in a purple royal sash. And I saw his hands, he was holding out to me with love, and it was like of light and nothing but purity. And I even saw the hem of his Hebrew robe. It had little bells on it. It was the details of these clothes. And I'm like, this must be Jesus, because this is over in Israel, what they wear, Hebrews wear. It wasn't like normal 1970, well, it happened in 1975, 1977 when I saw this. And I was remembering, I'm capturing, I never want to forget this feeling of love and seeing this. I've got to hold on to this. It's a special moment in my heart of when I saw him. He revealed himself to me, because he will give you more than the desires of your heart if you seek him, and you will find him. And that's exactly what the Bible says, that seek me and you will find me. And I've held on to that in times of darkness or whatever in my life. And even with the devil experience, I know that Jesus loves me. And even I have to remember back in, Sunday school where we had to scream it, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. It might be elementary, but it's still, you got to hold on to whatever you can these days to keep, fighting that, against the evil in this world. But so I've seen the best of the best, and I've seen the darkest of night, and I know where I want to go. So God has shown me both extremes. Do you want this, or do you want? Well, I'd much rather have Jesus when I was a little kid, but He'll take you through this journey, and if you're paying attention in a spiritual way, He'll show you different things and different confirmations spiritually. And I think then that was another thing that he wanted to show me, that I, in my heart, I would never admit that I'd wanted to see the devil, but he showed me, and it was totally unexpected, because he knows us better than we know ourselves. You see, and does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible.
Mhm.
And I can't imagine having
Yeah.
an experience like that.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad that you are not like laughing at me, thinking that I'm crazy. I'm 53. I've seen a lot of things on this earth, and I've been here. But I know for a fact of all these things are true and things I've seen. And you can't really put your mind in a box. You can't. You got to think outside of the box and be open to these things, because I feel like God is waiting to show us even more things that are, there's way more things out there that we can experience. And if you're closed minded about Sasquatch, I mean, how could you be about anything that he's trying to teach you? Or be open to seeing other things that he wants to show you.
Yeah, I completely agree. There are things out there that we just can't explain. And you got to experience this. So you should feel blessed. I mean, some of the things were terrifying, but it brings you closer to your faith. And you know, without a doubt, that there are things going on out there that we cannot simply explain.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what I would encourage everybody to do, to try to have a open mind and try not to judge people, that have, and try not to call people crazy, because, you never know when the shoe's going to be on the other foot and you're going to be experiencing it. That's what I do. I try to have an open mind with everybody and not judge anybody with what they've gone through or what they've seen or whatever, because everybody's got a story and everybody's got a different journey in life. And none of us have the same journey. So we all need to encourage each other along the way and be there for one another and try to be as understanding as possible with each other and patient with one another.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. And this whole topic is beyond just an unknown primate. There's something more to it. And hopefully we can all figure it out one day.
I hope so, Miguel.
Okay.
But thank you so much for listening and giving me the opportunity to tell you my encounters. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure having you on the show. You did an excellent job, and I appreciate you for taking the time to log down this report.
Okay, hon. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, and you have an excellent Sunday. Chelsea Joe's encounters remind us that Bigfoot is more than just a campfire story. These experiences change lives, families, and the way people see the world. From red glowing eyes to strange movements that defy explanation, Chelsea believes these creatures may not be entirely of this world. Although she does believe they are flesh and blood, she believes that there is more going on than what we would like to believe. We hope you enjoyed her incredible story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sasquatch Theory for more interviews and investigations into the unknown. Until the next time, keep your eyes open because you never know what's watching from the shadows.